Hello, everyone. This is Abhijit, and welcome to Beyond Box Office. This channel is going to be about films. There's going to be film reviews, film discussions like this one, and in depth film analysis, and film content in general, news, updates, what have you. There's going to be the three of us. There's me, there's Sumuk, and there's Mohana Murli Krishna. What exactly can you expect from the channel? I'm not really sure. We'll discuss about that in the following episodes. But for now, let's roll with it. We'll before starting, we'll follow one small tradition, and so all three of us are going to suggest one film. Can be any genre. Go ahead, guys.
So,
Yep.
well, for this week's suggestion, as you, as many may not know, I really love the genre of commercial cinema, and nothing speaks uh, Hollywood commercial cinema for me uh, more than a Nick Fury film. Or rather, did I get it wrong? Yeah, I did get it wrong. It's a Nicolas Cage film. So, Nicolas Cage is Well, Nicolas Cage. Uh, Prime Nicolas Cage is someone that could not be stopped, and his movies were over the top, full of conviction, and they made you believe, the larger than life cinema. So, for this week's suggestion, I would go with National Treasure, 2004, Nicolas Cage. It is basically Da Vinci Code, but much more fun, much more engaging, and it has Nick Cage in his prime in it. Like, what more do you want? It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would be my recommendation for this week.
Yeah. Sumuk.
Yeah, so for me, it would be The Amateur. It's actually a movie in 2025. Actually, the poster caught my eyes. It has Rami Malek and Lawrence Fishburne. You know, the guy in The Matrix. That's what it felt interesting to me, and I actually saw the movie, and it was quite interesting. It was actually, you can say, action thriller kind of movie, and I quite liked it, and I recommend you all to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And my recommendation would be The Scent of a Woman. Uh, that's by that's starring Al Pacino. Like, it's great film, really wonderful. I don't want to spoil anything, uh, but yeah, it's wholesome. It makes you laugh. It makes you cry at times, and it really makes you root for the characters. Again, The Scent of a Woman. Go watch it. Uh, Wonderful film, and
Sounds like a fun name.
it is. It is. The movie is even more fun, and it the title of the movie has some significance, I would say, to in the plot of the movie. Anyway, just watch it, and let's start today's episode. This is going to be about the film Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, starring Tom Cruise, obviously, directed by Christopher McQuarrie. This is the eighth film in the franchise, and let's see how the film is and how it fares against its previous installments. Guys, take it away.
So, Christopher McQuarrie, I mean, what could go wrong? Christopher McQuarrie and Tom Cruise coming back together once again. I mean, I think this is their fourth straight collaboration, if
Yeah,
I'm not
it
wrong.
started. Yeah, it started with Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation, Fallout, Dead Reckoning, and Final Reckoning. Yeah, four.
Let's just say um, this is one of the more weaker outputs that they put out together, with maybe Rogue Nation being the best, or even Fallout, again, depending on the fans' choice. So, I mean, look, as a commercial movie fan, again, commercial movies are my thing, you know. Mission Impossible is one such series where it had dished out rather consistently. It did not take well, to name to name a better example, I think it did not take uh, the Fast and Furious route where, you're just churning one movie after the other just for the sake of it. But it had some content. It had some driving motive. I just could not feel the same with the latest installment of, Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie's collaboration. I usually find their collaborations to be very, very exciting. Uh, Yikes, I guess. But again, I'm not saying the movie is a disaster. It had its own, you know, great points about it. I can't say it's the best either. So, well, let's just say I'm somewhere in between. I'm not really leaning towards upwards of mediocre either.
Okay. So, should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, for me, it was entertaining, but somehow I felt overwhelmed with the action. I felt too much action. It's not that I did not like the action. I liked it, but I felt it could have been better if there was, balance with some story, or, if I also got to know that the director, Christopher McQuarrie, he actually directed Top Gun Maverick. I remember after watching Top Gun Maverick in lockdown, I felt such a sigh of relief. I felt, oh, okay, this is what movie should be like. This is what, you can't watch it on a small screen. These kinds of movie you need to watch on the big screen. I I feel like not saying that again for this movie. Like somehow after watching those actions, high octane actions continuously, gave me a kind of fatigue, watching them again and again. So I had initially high expectations, but I can say no, it did not meet mine. Well, that's
Well,
it for me.
Mm. It's
just as a
interesting.
counter argument, what were you expecting out of a Mission Impossible movie? I
No, the
mean,
thing
it
is,
definitely
see,
is not a romantic film. I mean, sure,
of
I mean,
course,
there was
of course,
some
it's not.
romance when Ilsa Faust was alive, but hey,
We'll get to that. I have much to say regarding that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for me. Yeah, I know. I have seen previous Mission Impossible movies,
Mm,
and
mm,
I am actually fan of this franchise. But that's what, after watching those movies, I had a bar set at a certain high standard, but did not meet that.
mm,
That's what I want to
mm,
say. So
mm.
yeah, we'll
It's
discuss in
yeah.
detail
It's
further. Let's hear it
yeah.
from
It's
Abhijit.
yeah. It's interesting you say that, Sumuk, because I felt that Final Reckoning felt like it was one of the slower Mission Impossible films. The pacing, at least, felt that way. The first half, there are like two major sequences, of course, which we're going to touch upon definitely. The submarine sequence and like the deep water, getting the retrieving the Podkova, that sequence, and there's the final biplane chase, Gabriel and Ethan. Apart from that, the movie is relatively slower than previous installments, I would say. I would ask you this: which installment felt like the definitive version for you? Since you are talking about that expectations, what was high
I
up there
think
in your list?
I think the initial franchises, the one, two, three, initial movies were actually quite good, quite entertaining, and
Hmm.
because somehow, of course, the franchises are connected with each other, but I felt this was the second part of the previous movie, and it was not the case in previous ones. So they were independent of independent to each
Well,
other, mutually
yeah,
exclusive.
not fully, I would say, because
Because
Fallout
the
is
entity was in previous
Fallout is
movie and it's now.
yeah, I get it. Of course,
Yeah.
this is part two of Dead Reckoning. That's obvious. But what I'm saying is, Fallout is not a fully standalone film. The villain in Fallout is the same one from Rogue Nation Part 5, and the characters carry over. The story arc itself actually gets carried over. So Part 5 and 6 are kind of go together, and 7 and 8 go together. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, so that's what I would say. The
Mm,
initial movies, when it was
mm,
released, the initial,
mm,
uh,
mm,
they were, meeting my expectation. I found them quite
mm.
entertaining.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like that I did not find this entertaining, but that's what, I felt it lacked something.
yeah. And yeah, talking about action sequences, the deep water sequence, it was actually good. Like, I don't know how much effort they put into it. I was reading up about that sequence, and apparently the director, Christopher Mary, got into the water to direct. So what usually happens is it was said that the directors usually are on shore, they are on land, and they kind of course, there's this large sets, tanks, swim tanks or water tanks where the shooting happens. Usually, the director is up there on the ground, uh, commanding and directing the crew, which also includes an assistant director. So that's like the assistant director almost acts like a liaison of sorts. And there is no direct connection between the actors and the director. Whereas here, he essentially cut that link and he directly coordinated with the actors. Ethan Hunt, essentially. Tom Cruise, that is. And that I felt like they, went the extra mile, including the director. So I think some of Tom's habits rubbed off onto the director. He started doing stunts. So okay, that's good to know. And it was it was so scary. Like deep water. I'm usually not a fan of underwater sequences, but this one like really hit it. Hit the right chord. I feel uh, it almost changed the tone of the film. I suddenly felt like I was watching a horror film, like a sci-fi horror, that mystery film, which actually reminded that sequence actually reminded me of another movie that's called Underwater, uh, released in 2020. That stars what's the actress from Twilight, Kristen Stewart. That stars Kristen Stewart. Okay, putting aside all the memes, that's a good movie. She did really good in that movie. That sequence, underwater sequence, reminded me of that movie, which is exactly called Underwater in 2020. Really eerie vibes, creepy film. Almost, it is a sci-fi horror film. So yeah, there's uh, there's that heavy slow sequence, but one of the best in the franchise, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, okay. S-
I mean, I completely disagree with your take, man. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so to be frank, the idea that Mission Impossible had bad action sequences, or rather, action sequences that desensitize you, I
I never said
mean,
that.
no, no, it's
I
not
never said.
about you, man. It's
Yeah.
about Sumuk. I don't agree with Sumuk. I kind of agree with you. I really loved the underground action sequence. Honestly, I don't think the action set pieces were the problem in the movie. The movie had narration issues. It may have had some pacing issues, and it had issues regarding emotional depth. But it never had problems with its action set pieces. Action set pieces were one of the best things in the movie.
Yeah,
And
of course, they
obviously,
were,
Tom
very
Cruise.
good, very entertaining. But I just
Okay.
felt it was, disconnected.
Yeah,
It
that
lacked
is
certain
fine, but
depth.
that does not mean that does not mean the same as what you said before, which is we had way too many action sequences in the cinema, which is not true. We had
See, the
appropriate
thing
amount. The
is,
only problem is the emotion connecting the action sequences are not as heavy. That's what I felt. Yeah.
Hmm.
That being said, I don't know if you guys did observe this. For me, music also played a major part in this movie, which is the lack of it, or rather, at least the score by Max Aruj and Alfie Godfrey was quite lackluster business for me, because Max Aruj and Alfie Godfrey used to work for Lauren Balfe, if I'm not wrong, and Lauren Balfe was the person who scored for Dead Reckoning, sorry, Final Reckoning. So the first part. First part's music I really loved. Okay, and before that, if I'm not wrong, Hans Zimmer was the one to score. Please verify this if possible. Lone Balfe used to work for Hans
I
Zimmer's
don't think
studio,
so.
but Lone Balfe actually used to work for Hans Zimmer's studio. So it's essentially Hans Zimmer passing the torch to Lone Balfe, and Lone Balfe is passing the torch to his students. But in my opinion, Lone Balfe did a much better job in scoring the film. Um at times, the score felt out of place. It could have been much better. The theme could have been used I don't know, like the theme by Lalo Schifrin was quite diluted in this movie. Could have been way better. For a commercial cinema, you should be going balls out. I did not see that. So, yeah, music, again, another May factor. But hey, at least it's mastered well. So, I guess I'll drink to that.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So yeah, there's also the characters in the film, and of course, one of the major characters would be, apart from Ethan Hunt, Luther, Benji, Grace, and yeah, I think they would be the main team there. And when it comes to Grace, I feel like, I don't know what they tried to do with her exactly. Like, her role does not feel very uh, tight to me,
Organic.
and organic to me. And this again brings me back to the previous film, the Dead Reckoning Part 1, where there was an interesting choice which kinda almost split the Mission Impossible camp into two groups or even multiple groups, I don't know. And I fall in the camp where I despised the way they treated the character Ilsa Faust. The 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 thing is, guys, in the Mission Impossible franchise, at least for me, it is almost a running joke that Ethan Hunt is going to get a new girl in every single film. That is almost the case. That has been the case since part one. It's there's no sugarcoating it, and there's no soft work around it. And in part one, there's Jim Phelps' wife or fiance, exact, I don't know, and there's like a really interesting tension that happens between them. She kind of uh, seduces him for for plot purposes. In part one, there's that. In part two, uh, which is a very interesting installment, there's Naya. In part 3, there's Julia. He gets engaged to Julia, which again, the engagement breaks off. They don't live together, which is like they show her in Ghost Protocol and Fallout, how, and give a good closure for her in Fallout. Sure, wonderful. In Ghost Protocol, there's nothing as such that goes between the character of Ethan Hunt and the character played by Paula Patton. That's the actress. So there's nothing really flirtatious, I would say. There's no romantic element. So that's the only exception. Part five is where you know is where the actual you know interesting character comes in, I would say. Ilsa Faust. I'm pretty sure Ilsa Faust as a character in the entire series, apart from Ethan Hunt, deserves another film series. Like, that's how good she was. Like, her plot, her dialogues, and the performance delivered by Rebecca Ferguson. They brought in the character in part 5. They used they used that chemistry, really built upon it. And Fallout, she was still there. Dead Reckoning, she was there. Like, at this point,
At
I
least
felt like,
partly.
okay, yeah. At this point, I felt like the story was maturing. Ethan as a character, his romantic arc was kind of getting some sort of closure. That is when they pop her out of existence. Yeah. And kind of they also bring in Grace in the same film, and they kill
Somehow
off
stick Ethan with it.
Ilsa. Yeah, stick I don't ship them together. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
even the way it was presented, Gabriel giving them a choice, saying either Ilsa or Grace is going to die tonight, kind of making them almost pitch against each other for survival, and then killing off Ilsa, Grace taking her position or whatever, the vacant position, and continuing in the final movie. It was in no way natural. And some I've heard some saying that there's it's not a romantic relation that is between Ethan and Grace. I don't know, man. I don't know how to feel about that, because in Final Reckoning, there's this sequence when he comes out of the deep water and is saved by Grace. Like, go watch that scene again, and tell me it is not romantic. Yeah, in no angle can it be
No
called
shit,
non-romantic.
Sherlock.
Yeah, so
I
I
mean,
don't know. I think they
look,
kind of they I think they wanted to treat it as a mentor-mentee relationship. I don't know, brother-sister relationship, which they did in the past. If you remember, in part 3, there is an agent called Lindsay Farris, and she dies in the beginning of
yes.
the movie. She's like Ethan's best student, and one of the top agents after Ethan Hunt. She goes on a mission to find out more about that antagonist, and gets killed in the hands of Ethan Hunt. She dies in the hands of Ethan Hunt. That was a tragic moment, and that, I think, was a relationship that was shown as a mentor-mentee, father-daughter kind of, that relationship. But nah, Grace is not that. The way they portray her is not that. The way they pitch her against Ilsa Faust is definitely not that. And
I
yeah,
could actually
that's
relate it a
that's
little better.
my
Okay.
yeah.
So here's the deal. Ilsa Faust is the one good idea that they messed up towards the end.
Yeah.
So the writing choices that they chose for Ilsa Faust towards, when they reached Dead Reckoning were quite lazy. So if you want to terminate a female character, you could have, I mean, the easiest way out is to just kill her. And that's what they chose. On top of that, Grace's character is more lazy writing laden on top of it. I'll tell you why. So if you do see, Grace's character, it's a cat burglar turned into agent
Yeah.
of sorts. Let's just say that is the case. Where have we seen the same trope again and again? Ocean's 11, the Ocean series. You always have one cat burglar lady or one seductress lady. Uh, some aspects of James Bond movies. Um, God knows how many movies where a cat burglar, or maybe even Now You See Me as a movie, has almost like a cat burglar woman, or rather, it's that complete fit of a woman that is just brought into the action film genre just to fill that active female role, which is quite sad. As much as I love Haley Atwell's body of work, Grace is just uh, redecorated flower pot. I mean, that's what it serves. Eye candy on the screen, not much contribution to the complete storyline. Ilsa Faust was essentially gold, and they really, really, really could not use Ilsa Faust, which is very sad. Again, as I said, it all chalks up to lazy writing.
Yeah.
I mean, as a fan, I'm kind of disappointed with that choice.
Yeah.
It was like an Ocean's 11 or like an Ocean's 13 movie, where, you have this one cat burglar woman turning into. Again, there it's a heist. They stay true to their nature at least. A cat burglar turning into a spy, I mean, as a trope, I don't think it's quite new.
Yeah, she's Ilsa Faust is the only like lead woman characters to
And
have
she looked
appeared
the
in
part.
3 films. In 3 films, she did great job. The actress Rebecca Ferguson, the character was really good. They had a lot of chemistry going on between the two. Wonderful. 3 films, and they just decided to, yeah, drop her. They and replaced her with the Grace. They simply evolved, but backwards is what I can say.
Just to mention something,
No
the
offense
whole
to Haley
sequence
Atwell,
where
but
Grace and
the
Ilsa
character
Faust
choices, yeah.
are like, placed together and
Yeah,
Ethan
yeah.
Hunt is made to choose. This is not a new scenario in a James Bond film. If I'm not wrong, James Bond is also made to choose between the two in many movies. Uh, if I'm wrong, uh, if I'm not wrong, it must be one of the Daniel Craig movies where you would be seeing two of the female leads and the
Yeah.
antagonist asking you to make a choice. Again, I have
Yeah.
to verify which movie or which installation it is, but I'm pretty sure there is a similar sequence where James Bond is made to choose. Again, as I said, not new writing, not the first time that kind of scene was written. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's how you choose to end your best written character. I mean, to be frank, Ethan Hunt is quite the generic uh, main character, to be very, very frank. If
Yeah,
anything,
yeah, yeah.
Ilsa Faust was their
This,
best original
yeah,
output,
yeah.
and they could
True,
have
true.
really, really
Ilsa,
worked together
yeah,
with
yeah.
it, which they did
She had
not.
the
Sad.
flair. Yeah, yeah. She had that flair. This again, this segues into another point, which is the plot of the movie. And this, of course, because these are 2 parts essentially, Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning. Uh, the way they introduced Gabriel as a character was interesting. I'll tell you how it's clever, creative, and how it's also kind of bad or silly in some respects. Firstly, the character Gabriel, uh, I don't know, the dialogues, the lines that they gave him were not up to par. There was no real tension when Gabriel shows up on the screen. The I felt like the actor did a pretty good job. I think it's his Asai Morales. He did a decent job, but the character was simply not having the presence. Gabriel was a weak character, and the way they introduce him, now this is interesting. In Dead Reckoning, they show him as someone from Ethan's past, kind of giving him another bad time, showing up again. No, the villain's second coming. That's almost how they show him. And if you remember, they give this slight backstory. I don't know how many flashbacks they show about this, but they say that Ethan had a past before the IMF. So they talk about Ethan before he was, Ethan as we know. And there's this his love interest, Mary. Now Mary gets killed by Gabriel. They tell us this, but the thing is, if you actually go back to, so let me tell you what happened to me. I watched Dead Reckoning Part 1. When I watched the film, interestingly, at that point I only watched Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, and Part 6. I never actually watched Mission Impossible, the first part and the second part. So this was my knowledge going into the picture. Now, looking at that narration. Oh, there's Mary from Ethan's past. Ethan had a criminal, not so criminal, being convicted, that kind of past. All of that. Oh, the villain's second coming. Gabriel is now back to give Ethan a hard time. Huh? All of that. It actually worked because I never actually saw the first films. What I assumed was, and this was clever on the writing part, they retconned the story of Ethan in such a way that newcomers into the franchise think that it has something to do with part one, part two, or the very early movies. Because there's 8 goddamn films in the franchise. So what did the audience think, including me? We thought that okay, Mary is shown in the first part, Mary is shown in the second part, Gabriel interacts with Ethan, backstabs Ethan or whatever, does damage to him in the first few films. Oh, I missed it. Oh, now I know. Anyway, let's watch this film and go back to the first films. This is what I thought, and that is what I did. After watching the film, I went back to the initial films, rewatched those entire thing, the entire all of those, and brother, there is no Mary in part one. There is no Gabriel. There is no Mary in part two. There is no Gabriel in part two. They were never there. The film never discusses anything. So it was pure retconning in the literal sense. It was retconning a past, retconning the story, and retconning his Ethan's love interest or the villain history. And it was clever, to be honest, because I fell for it when I watched Dead Reckoning. But in retrospect, I felt like it was a sucker punch, a bit of a cheap shot. Yeah, that I can say. But yeah, despite all of that, Gabriel, I felt like he was a weak character, not the strongest of villains. Part three had a great villain, played by Philip Seymour Hoffman. Wonderful. Solomon Lane he was decent. He was good. Part two, I don't even want to talk about part two a lot. That's a different kind of Mission Impossible. If you remember that film properly, it does not even feel like a Mission Impossible film. It just kind of falls somewhere else. But yeah, those are my 2 cents about the retconning.
So for me, at least with regards to the antagonist, Mansumuk, I'm sorry I'm taking your time. Um, the only thing is, let's start with the entity. Okay, I did not mind the entity in part one. I might be one of the only few fans who did not really mind the entity or the existence of a entity in part one. Because somehow the entity is shown as this all-powerful force, and you would feel the heat of, the presence of the entity. But somehow when you slowly ease through into the second part, the latest installment,
Yeah,
you feel like the
it's
entity is
lost.
kind of,
Yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
entity's danger is lost. And
it's
sadly,
lost. Yeah,
Gabriel is just another, evidence of lazy writing.
yeah,
Because, if you're going to really, say that Gabriel is someone from Ethan Hunt's past, you really had the time to explore something from Ethan Hunt's past. You really
maybe.
could have
Yeah,
had a very
yeah,
good 30-minute section where we would
yeah,
discuss or show
yeah,
Ethan Hunt's past. But hey, that would mean that the
yeah,
movie would be absolutely great, which it is not.
yeah,
So you can see how Gabriel was very underutilized as a character. And again, lazy writing. What can I say? I mean, I think at this point, that's a goddamn trope with the entire second part. Uh, Quite sad, really. But I really loved Entity in first part. I
yeah,
look,
yeah,
a lot of
I
people
agree.
were against the Entity. I was very pro Entity in the first part. Really wish they could have gone for a better Entity. But that's sad.
Yeah,
I really
and
expected so much.
yeah, talking about retconning, if you guys and the audience play single player games, uh, there's this one game which is very dear to me. It's called Uncharted 4. It's it's a masterpiece, guys. And in that game, that game is the best example of how to retcon a character. So in the first three games, Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, they have your main character Nathan Drake, and there's also his father figure Sully. Both of them go on an adventure, treasure hunt, your usual run of the mill story. But what made the great series so great is that interaction between the characters, that human touch, that humor, and the technical fidelity and the technical achievements of the game. That's what made the first three parts great. Now, part four had a different direction. It was more focused on story. They went balls out when it comes to story, and boy, did it pay off. Because in the first three parts, Nathan Drake has no brother. But in part four, they bring in his elder brother. Oh, Nathan has an elder brother. He's called Samuel Drake. Now, the amount of effort that they put into developing his character in just one part is tremendous. I think the entire gameplay of the game would be something like 23, 24 hours. I think more on the, a bit more, 27, 28 hours. But they spend, I think, 5 to 6 hours just making us play, through the childhood of Nathan Drake and Samuel Drake. Make you spend that time, get to know Sam as a character. So it, in a way, essentially makes up for all the previous installments for that one character. And it was so wonderful. Like after you finish Uncharted 4, I'm pretty sure you'll like Samuel Drake as much as Nathan Drake, if not more. That's how good the retconning was. So that's a classic example of how to do it the proper way, I would say. Yeah. Sumukh,
So, Sumo,
any points, bro? You've been real quiet.
you've been
Yeah.
muted for a while now.
Yeah, so about the characters, usual Ethan Hunt killed it like he does every time. Again, we also have our favorite characters, Luther and Benji. They usually entertain us, and we love watching them
Yeah.
in the franchise. And I really did not like Luther being wiped out. Did not actually expect that. Would have been nice if Grace was eliminated instead of him. I felt that. And besides them,
That's just the hater in you talking. This is Gracelander. We're not accepting Gracelander now.
So besides that, other characters which were interesting, I liked Paris. The equation Paris and Ethan Hunt share. How she helps him in certain situations, and we also have Admiral Neely and Captain Bledsoe, the submarine guy.
Bledsoe. Yeah.
Bledsoe was
I like this
interesting.
character.
Bledsoe was good.
When he says, if you want to poke the bear, you come at the right guy. That was a nice dialogue. And, you feel
If you want to poke the bear, you come to the right guy. That was an insane one.
Yeah.
If I'm not wrong, there was another scene where he would say, there's some, if I'm not wrong, I think Ethan Hunt is sitting in a post-hyperbaric chamber. He's sitting in his shower, and Bledsoe appears right next to him, like in front of him, and Ethan Hunt says something along the lines of, "You are Bledsoe," and then Bledsoe would say, "You're out of your goddamn mind," and I was actually losing my mind. Okay. That was such a proper introduction to a character that could have been extended. I really wanted the entire scenes with Bledsoe and Ethan Hunt to be drawn out because there's some insane on-screen, bromance going there. I really wanted a little more of it. Speaking of Luther and Benji, or rather Luther getting wiped out, the fact that Gabriel was using nuclear detonations as popcorn all around the world was really,
that's what I find
it was.
hilarious. Each time I see that guy Gabriel, I see something, he sets up a nuke and it's like something, RDX or TNT. Each time he does that, I find it hilarious. I loved it up.
it's almost like he's desensitizing the threat, or rather, like, he's really
Yeah,
removing,
completely.
diffusing the threat by using it way too many times. A nuclear explosion is supposed to be a massive threat. I mean, if you take GI Joe for example, there is this one scene where the president in the United Nations would launch all the nukes, ask everybody, or rather force everybody else to launch their nukes, and then detonates them right midair. Following which he also does the kinetic strikes, but before that, you would have the threat of the nuclear missile or the nuclear attack is real. And by detonating nukes whenever he seems fit, Gabriel just diffuses the threat factor to a nuke. And I felt that to be a little bit of a quagmire, to be honest. I don't know.
Hmm.
I really did not want the film to go that way, but hey, it is what it is.
Man, I really feel at this point the franchise is just saturated. If they release another one, ain't no
I
way
mean,
I'm going
no,
to
they're
theater
not.
to watch
They
this. Ain't
okay,
no fucking
okay.
way.
First of all,
I'ma just watch
let
it on
me
my screen, small screen. Ain't no way I'ma go to theater and watch that shit. Ain't no way, dog.
Bro.
buy. So Sumuk,
So,
so
so,
to
so this,
to keep things safe. First of all, there is no other installment happening. This is the final installment. They have confirmed that.
Thank
So there
God.
is no Ethan Hunt returning. Okay, don't say thank God. Come on.
I just don't know
This is
why
one
that
of the few
motherfucker is alive.
franchises that did
and
Like
commercial
it is
cinema
it's,
well.
I
suspended.
think, yeah, I feel like a franchise which has much more than four films. Out of all those franchises, I feel like Mission Impossible is very best actually. It did a great job.
Actually, yeah,
Like
I
like
conquer
if
on
you
that.
you look at, yeah, you look at films like Fast and Furious. Nah, they are in no way. There was a point till which the series was serious, and then it turned into
Fast
something else
and
entirely.
Furious, at some point,
It
it's just
it
cars, Brazil,
so
the family, the torn shirt guy. That's it.
yeah so yeah
And Dwayne
so
Johnson for the most of it. I hated the guy. I still hate him.
the way the franchise matured is really wonderful. I
I just
I
wish it
wanna
had a
say,
better ending.
for example, part one starts off very serious. I think out of all the films, the eight films, I think part one is the most serious out of them all. Has a really heavy tone. Like in the it starts off in this party where there's the IMF team, Jim Phelps, who's the antagonist, but we'll get to know that later. He kind of almost leads the team, including Ethan Hunt and his other teammates. And ra- like 20 20 minutes into the movie, one of his teammates die. He dies in an elevator, malfunctioning, of course, which is later said to be, by the, said that it's by the hands of the villain. You'll get to know that later. So it starts off very serious. The entire tone is heavy. There's that for the first part. Mission Impossible 2 is a is
Well,
is
yeah.
it was something. Mission Impossible 2 was just Mission Impossible 2. He for the lack of a better word, in the entire film, Ethan Hunt acts like a simp. Like, just go watch that movie, and that is it. I don't want to talk about that.
Hey, come on. To be
Mission
honest,
Impossible 3.
I don't
Mission
think I
Impossible 3.
really hated
Yeah,
it.
yeah. No,
And just so
get
you
to
know,
that later.
it's
No.
so
So
do
Mission
not
Impossible 3.
slander it. It's by John Woo.
Mission
Okay,
Impossible. It's I get it. I get it.
that is
I
a
get it.
John
Yeah.
Woo movie.
Yeah,
Okay,
I know. The action sequences are good. Everything is good. What I'm saying is
they
that
should be. It's
it
John
should
Woo.
it should not. I'm saying that in a way, in retrospect, it fully does not belong in the Mission Impossible series. Now,
I loved it.
what could be the Mission Impossible series? It's hard to say when you're making the film. So it's hard for
Yeah,
John Woo to say what the series is going to be, what Bird was going to do, what Christopher McQuarrie was going to do. So in retrospect, it's easy for us to uh, cast that movie as an outlier, do that. But yeah, in his defense, people don't know what exactly the vision is going to be when they're moving. It's a really good film, but just fully doesn't fit with the tone of the rest of the installments. Now coming to
Just so
part
you
3,
know,
Mission
it was a
Impossible 3.
massive hit.
Yeah, yeah, Mission Impossible 3 was a serious film. Starts off really wonderfully. Death of Lindsay Harris, like the tragic tone of the start. That's really something. And but visually, I feel like there's some issues here because the color grading was an issue. The film is very greenish. They use some sort of color grading, and it feels very saturated. I don't know. It might have been fashion back then. It did not age. It aged really poorly. There was yeah. In retrospect, that was a misstep, I feel. Now, Mission Impossible Part 4, Ghost Protocol, is, I would say, where they got their shit together. Brothers knew what to do, what they were going for. They saw their vision. They had it in their hands. They had it in the cusp of their hands. Fully flexed their creativity, starting from chapter 4, and everything after that is, I would say, extremely good. My favorite in the franchise is Ghost Protocol, and after that, 3 is actually good if we forget the color grading and all of that. Then we move on to Rogue Nation. Now, Rogue Nation, we all know, like, introduction of Solomon Lane, Ilsa Faust, wonderful. Christopher McQuarrie, literally carrying the second half of the franchise from then. And yeah, after that, every movie was good. Part 8, okay, it's not the best. I did not like it as much as the previous films. Even not as much as Part 7, actually, despite the death of Ilsa Faust, which I fully condemn. And yeah.
Look, in the grand scheme of things, I think the last installment is actually sadly the worst Mission Impossible film for me. On the grading scale, 2 is still great for me.
I agree on that.
Look, I'm a massive John Woo simp, so for me, the second film was quite good. Yeah, I know it's kind of sad, but I mean, it's the worst out of the better commercial cinema that Hollywood has put out. And sadly, the only problem is, as well, Tom Cruise is trying to break the fourth wall and convey, art is being lost to artificial intelligence. And to be frank, this was a very fair attempt at art being art, at real being real, and danger being danger. So I still have to give Tom Cruise his medals and his accolades, because he kind of deserves it. But regardless of whatever I feel about Tom Cruise and his dedication, the movie itself kind of lacks.
There's also
Yeah,
a
regarding
few.
also I
Yeah.
want to point something about the entity, because the two films, this one and the previous one, revolves around it. I felt, it tracked certain depth. Initially it was interesting, but as moving, it felt like, something concept out of fairy tale or too theorish. It felt like, they use randomly the word quantum in Marvel Endgame.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
the time machine is actually possible. Quantum mechanics.
Quantum.
That's what.
Throw in the
Yeah,
word quantum
just
4
throw
times.
the random
Oh,
word.
now you are a physicist. Yeah. Yeah, it felt
Yeah,
like
that's what.
the entity
The
kind
concept
of
of
overstayed
entity.
its welcome in a way. What can I
Hey,
say? It was
I don't
an
think
entity
the
after all.
entity
Further
had such an equivalent situation there.
You
Sure,
know,
the
it's
entity
like,
was downplayed as it went, or at least the threat felt diffused. But entity as
I
such was
felt,
never
I
Marvelified.
felt something creative or new, a novel concept. If they would have been introduced, it would be nicer, because we know all of this from Terminator, the Judgment Day, AI getting all the controls,
Yeah.
getting nukes, controlling everything.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
at this point, just cliche. That's what I feel. That's why I
Yeah.
felt,
Sure,
if they
but
would
you
have
never
worked more
had
on that
Ethan
concept.
Hunt's take on it. Look,
Yeah, but
now that AI has taken over the world in the most literal sense, I think an AI-powered villain is very apt. I cannot say that is going to be a bad thing.
Yeah,
But the
definitely
problem
it
is the
has
way it was
potential.
presented, I
Yeah,
believe
that's
it
the
could have
thing.
been presented with a little more threat.
Yeah,
I
that's the
really
thing.
wanted Ethan Hunt to interact with the entity more, be it through
Yes.
Gabriel or whatever. I just did not see it. There were many fun, interesting ways to integrate the
No,
entity
that's
with
what
Ethan Hunt's character,
AI and Gabriel felt definitely weaker in this movie.
Yeah.
which
Definitely
is
felt
sad.
weaker. Yeah.
I mean, what felt good? I mean, except for the very
So
beautifully
yeah,
crafted action set pieces and
yeah, yeah.
Bledsoe.
I'll tell you one really, really good point that I absolutely loved, which was the return of the character William Dunlow. He's the CIA analyst. Now, if you
Mhm.
remember who William Dunlow is, he's the guy
Yes,
who
yes,
appears
yes.
in part one.
Definitely.
There's this scene which I think is still one
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the
Actually,
best,
I loved it. Yeah.
the best. That scene was one of the best
The
action
CIA
sequences.
cracker.
The most, the
Yeah.
most, the most Mission Impossible esque scene was the scene from part one, where Ethan Hunt with his teammate kind of drops from the ceiling, should not touch the ground. Not even his sweat can touch the ground. No object can fall on the ground. He has to break the damn computer, as in break into it, and get the Knox codes. That's what he has to do. Now this CIA analyst, they mix some kind of I know laxative in his drink. Bro has to go to the bathroom every single time, and yeah, after that he no they transfer him because he lost the knock list. Yeah, and
Onto Greenland, if I'm not wrong, right?
they throw him in the Bering Sea or whatever that place is in the Arctic or that region, polar region. And
Yeah, I really,
it's
I
so
love how they
wholesome,
integrated
and
it.
it's so wholesome. Ethan Hunt apologizes to Dunlow, saying, "No, I'm the reason you're here," and he tells him not to apologize because no,
I
that's the reason
met my wife.
he found his wife, his beautiful wife, is settled here, calm, peaceful environment, no trouble, no pollution, nothing, with his lovely
Look, I
wife.
really love the whole
Even
integration of the scene.
yeah, yeah. And even her wife, her
Yeah.
character was really, really, she was such a sweet,
Interesting character.
genuine character. They have this sequence with Grace where she just talks with using motions signs and all of that. She kind of gets half of it, half
That's
not,
the
and they
thing,
get the work
Grace.
done. It was yeah.
Grace isn't gracious in any scene. That's the problem with her.
Okay. The slander is
She was
going way too far. I think Haley
she was
Atwell did
she was
what
good.
she could.
As in, she was good. Like my contention is that
The
she
character
was
could
the
have been
way she
insuffered
was
easily.
she the way she was brought in was unnecessary and kind of redundant and almost them shooting themselves in the foot. I feel because there's it's like there's no reason to kill Ilsa Faust. Just okay, fine, you can bring Grace. Do you actually need to kill Ilsa Faust? So the way they brought in almost like a literal replacement of Ilsa Faust, that was not gracious, if you will, Smoke. The way they introduced the character Grace is not gracious. Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, his
that sums up fine.
she was pretty good. Haley Atwell, she's a good
Yeah,
actress.
of course,
Yeah,
there's no
yeah,
problem
of
in the
course.
actress. It's just the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
they, introduce the character.
yeah,
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 also
yeah,
I liked William Donnelly. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
the way he,
yeah,
sends Morse code and it
yeah,
actually
yeah.
gives us
Bro,
weekend
yeah,
relief,
he's an
in
OG. He remembers the code in his head. He doesn't write it down. He doesn't store it anywhere else. Bro is the OG. Just remembers it. Yeah.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
actually weird. The movie did have a few well-written characters. So I think it was left to luck where we would have better characters and where we would not. So again, as I said, it was a bittersweet experience.
Mm-hmm.
What can we say? I mean, it is a Mission Impossible movie.
Yeah.
It's still fun. It's much more fun than any mainstream franchise movie I've
It's
watched
fun. It's
in
fun.
recent times.
It's Hollywood. Uh, Hollywood had a peak, I would say, maybe something in like the 80s, 70s, 80s, where you had like this action films, Clint Eastwood, Wild West, mafia films, crime, really good romantic films. There was all sorts of genres, really embracing what a film has to be, uh, containing all the emotions, not just being, stuck to one genre, keep it realistic, keep it reserved, keep it artistic or whatever. It was truly embracing cinema. There was a time in Hollywood. I I really hope there's a revival of that. Let's hope that happens. But yeah, the peak of Hollywood was behind. But yeah, I'm glad that movies like Mission Impossible, John Wick, etc. are still coming out. They should, by all means. That is what keeps the flavor going. Uh, it's not always about art house films. It's not always about realistic, grounded films. A film does not need to send a message to society or anything. It does not bear any sort of responsibility, when it comes to
The
teaching
only
morals to
responsibility a movie
society.
has is to be a really, really cool movie.
Yeah, that's it.
That's
That is
all.
it. Yeah, morals
Able to
and
entertain its audience.
messages, morals come from the real life into art forms, not the other way around. That's what people usually get wrong. They they get the causality of this wrong. They look at art forms and they kind of try to put the responsibility on that. It should not. There's no need to. There's no need for it to be
The
anything else other than art. And film, for me, is one of the best art forms. For me, I prefer films
Definitely.
much more than books. I prefer films much more than any other no media art form.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. And I also agree with Abhijit, when he says the peak Hollywood was something else. Yeah.
yeah,
Growing up watching them, I absolutely feel that. And I also feel there should be a revival. Some director, I can't say some
yeah,
director, a group of directors
yeah,
should
yeah,
be the
yeah,
part of that renaissance. And definitely hope we expect something better. And
yeah,
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 well, take home message. Sure, the media was a little too harsh, or maybe we were all rightly harsh. Sure, the movie was mediocre, but
keep it
commercial
going.
cinema is
Yeah,
very alive and well, and
yeah,
it kept it
yeah,
going.
yeah, yeah.
And I
It should
wish
go on. Yeah, it should go on. Yeah,
more such movies are crafted, although
yeah,
maybe not in the same spirit, but like,
no,
something along the lines
yeah,
of it would be very great.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
okay.
So I think that
Sums
pretty
up
much
well.
wraps up what we have to say about the film. Please keep the series going. Please keep films like this going. I hope more producers are into making this type of films. Yeah, uh, uh, keep it. Add some masala, pull some flavors. The more outrageous, the more exaggeration there is, the better. It's not. This is not real life. This is film. Has to be viewed as such. That's it. Thanks a lot, guys. We shall be doing this on a pretty regular basis. There's going to be different types of content. This episode is going to be returning, and yeah, hope to see you soon. Stay tuned. Bye bye.
Hey, bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye
See
bye.
you soon.